Today we're going to be talking about the season finale of Invincible. I am so excited. So let's get started. Welcome to my channel. My name is Justin. I love to watch movies and I've enjoyed and I've loved Invincible so much. So if you guys do too, you guys are in the right spot. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and click that bell notification for more up and coming videos. The 8th episode of the first season is called Where I Really Come From. In exciting news, Invincible is renewed for a second and third season on Amazon Prime Video. Super pumped to check out the following seasons because this episode is epic. At the end of the last episode, Omni-Man says to Mark, "We have to have a talk." You're expecting to have a reveal why Omni-Man killed all those superheroes all the way back in the first episode. Yes, you get some reveals. Yes, it explains why. Yes, you expect conflict between Omni-Man and Invincible. You get all that in here. How is each episode of Invincible able to be better than the previous episode? This is like by far probably the best episode of this series because it explores the lore behind Omni-Man and where he really came from and why he killed all those superheroes back in the first episode. And throughout this whole series, we've been seeing Mark grow not only as a superhero, but as a teenager. And we see a lot of personal touches to this character. And as he's trying to balance that superhero life with being a teenager, he's really able to balance it in this episode and come to terms with certain things and really look at what it means to be a human while also being a superhero and how he kind of has to fulfill both roles in his life. We've known Invincible to be a brutal series, and this episode, it feels for a long time, about like the first 30 minutes or so, it's just non-stop fighting, non-stop action. It's bloody. There's a couple of times where I'm just like, they're really going for it. They're really doing it. And there is a lot of blood. And the sound effects in this series also is very impressive because there's a lot of people's faces being smashed in and people are being torn apart throughout the series. And we hear all of that. So the sound effects I've never really talked about is very impressive too. But I like the conflict between Omni-Man and Invincible within here because it is the main focus of this episode. We learn a lot about where Omni-Man comes from, and it adds a lot to the story and how they can further explore that as well. It adds a lot more to this world that Mark lives in and the conflict, and it really makes you think a lot about the whole relationship between Mark and Nolan and even Nolan's wife as well. So they really kind of dive deep into this relationship and what it means to be a father and a son while also being a superhero. And that conflict in here is something truly amazing. They did a great job exploring it while also trying to understand certain things while also trying to move forward as well. So this episode did so much and I was so impressed with how they brought the conflict to us. We were expecting it and it was building up throughout the previous 7 episodes, and the reveal for Nolan and where he actually came from. I have not read the graphic novel and I really would love to, maybe over the summer, since this is a break now between the first and second season. Where he comes from, it started off to be a little bit cliche, but then it expanded a little more, and it's something very unique, and the way that it's written into the story makes you go and think back about the past and the future as well. And so I was happy with how they kind of presented his story and then made you think about a lot of things throughout this episode. And it really explains why he's acting the way he is now. This is quite possibly one of the best superhero shows I have seen. I haven't seen too many superhero shows. I don't watch the CW shows. I haven't watched any of the previous Marvel shows. I watched a little bit of Daredevil. But this is by far one of the best I have seen. I loved Invincible. It's brutal. I loved how it felt like a big superhero story. The characters are so enjoyable. and the action is just very impressive, and the animation just works so well. The voice cast behind it is perfect, and we see a lot of the more personal moments and how hard for J.K. Simmons to kind of have this conversation with his son. It just all flows so naturally. If you are on Twitter and you have not liked the Invincible page, please do, because their social media game is on point. I love kind of like the Thursdays leading up to Invincible, and they release all these like GIFs and memes on their Twitter page. It's quite hilarious. So this episode gave me everything I wanted. I wanted to know a lot about Omni-Man, and I got that within here. But I got a deep conversation between Omni-Man and Invincible, exploring that conflict, exploring the relationship between father and son, and Omni-Man's duty to where he previously came from. It's really brutal, kind of heartbreaking too, but also grows Mark as a character. Can he become this big superhero that this city needs? I'm really excited to explore season 2 and season 3. The graphic novel spanned many years. Hopefully we can get a lot more of Invincible after season 3. So have you guys seen Invincible season 1? It is a show I've been impressed with from beginning to end. You know, a couple episodes did feel like filler episodes, but we were all building towards something. Now, some storylines kind of wrapped up in the 7th episode, which was smart because we are able to get that main focus on Mark and Nolan in the 8th episode. So wrapping it up in the 7th episode, you know, they didn't have any loose ties in the 8th episode. They kind of all just wrapped up everything nicely, but then knew that it was going to lead into a 2nd and 3rd season. It's not leaving with any big cliffhangers. It just leaves you excited for what comes next. And what comes next is probably going to be just as good. I'm going to go ahead and give this episode of Invincible an A-. Thank you guys for checking my review for the 8th episode of Invincible. And thank you for checking out all my reviews. If you would like to check out any of them, you can find them in a playlist up here. Stick around for more up and coming content. My name is Justin Watches Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.